Welcome to Off the Hook Sports. I am your host, Caleb Calhoun. We've got a lot to get to today, talking about the Tennessee Vols after their 72-17 win over ETSU. They get set for the biggest game of the year as they're set to host the Georgia Bulldogs this week. We're going to talk a lot about that, the preview of that game, and also where Tennessee is in the rankings. We're also going to look back on pretty much the Tennessee offense versus the UCLA offense. As UCLA lost again, we know Tennessee's better, but did they actually win? Is this proof that they won the trade? We're going to break that down. And then we're going to look back on the SEC over the weekend and week 2 in college football. I want to address up front. I'm sorry, Dave's not here with us today. He is back, but since he's been back, there are logistical issues and things that he has to kind of sort out and things like that. And some of those are unavoidable, and one of those was today, so he could not do the show today. But he is back. It's just you guys saw him on Friday and you saw him on Saturday, but there are just some logistical things that he's got to deal with, which is why he couldn't do the show today. So I'm going to be with you guys today. We hope to have Dave back tomorrow. Again, just a couple of things he's got to handle. So anyway, smash that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn on your notifications. We continue rolling. The show brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We broadcast to you live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, that is. New and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Let's get rolling with today's tough question, and it revolves around this Tennessee offense. After the Vols hung 72 on East Tennessee State, Tennessee hung 72 points on East Tennessee State over the weekend, went 3 deep with their offense down to George McIntyre and directed a touchdown drive with him. But the real story was how they looked in the first half with Joey Aguilar, who played the whole first half and had 288 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a jump ball to Mike Matthews where he let Mike Matthews make the play, and then another one to Chris Brazzell. All exciting, all reasons for people to be happy about the Tennessee offense. Now, the question is this. At the same time that happened, UCLA lost again. This time they were upset by Dan Mullen's Bruins. That's right, by Dan Mullen's UNLV Rebels, The UCLA Bruins lost 30-23 on the road to the UNLV Rebels. Nico Iamaleava in that game was 29-41 for 255 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. But Anthony Calandria was 15-21 for 203 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and had 11 carries for 59 yards. That was the story of the game, as they did an amazing job on UCLA's defense. Joey Aguilar is 2-0. Nico Iamaleava is 0-2. Nico Iamaleava transferred to UCLA, which forced Joey Aguilar, who had transferred from App State to UCLA, to hit the transfer portal again because basically it was just made clear he was going to lose that job to Nico Iamaleava, and he went to Tennessee in a straight trade-off. It's very clear Joey Aguilar got the better of the deal going to Tennessee versus Nico Iamaleava going to UCLA. But I'm going to ask this question in a different way. Has Tennessee officially won the trade with UCLA? And what I mean by that is the Vols were the better team. No doubt about it, all the way around. But did the Vols actually win the trade in the sense of they got the better quarterback? Are they better now than they would have been with Nico starting? And is UCLA worse now than they would have been with Joey Aguilar starting? Or is the difference between the two teams just about the talent everywhere else? Because Tennessee's just better everywhere else. That is today's tough question. It is brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. And it is the poll question. We have it up now. Did the Vols officially win the trade with UCLA? Yes, Joey Aguilar is better. No, Vols just have better talent. I'm going to split the baby, which I sometimes do. Y'all know I take big stances, and other times I do split the baby. And here's where I'm going to split the baby. I don't know at an NFL combine if you're trying to draft a player who you would take between Nico Iamaleava and Joey Aguilar. I thought Nico would be better this year in Tennessee's offense than Joey Aguilar would this year. I just thought Joey Aguilar would be better this year than Nico Iamaleava was last year. After watching Nico Iamaleava for 2 games at UCLA, though, I'm not entirely sure. Now, there's a couple of reasons, though, for this year I think Tennessee won the trade. Joey Aguilar, and this may not be about him being a better quarterback. It could just be that he's older. This is Joey Aguilar's 6th year of playing college football. He processes quickly. He gets rid of the ball quickly. He's more comfortable in the pocket. He steps into throws when guys are approaching him. That's a big deal. That's an NFL thing to do, by the way. I'm not saying he's an NFL caliber quarterback, but to be willing to stand in the pocket and step into throws does stand out. He makes quick decisions. I won't always say he makes better decisions than Nico Iamaleava did last year, but he doesn't make worse decisions, and he makes them a heck of a lot quicker. He's more accurate on his passes. And most importantly, Joey Aguilar is willing to throw the ball up to let his receivers make plays. I think that's where it stands out that Tennessee is in better shape with Joey Aguilar than they are with Nico Iamaleava, is that they have these elite receivers, Mike Matthews, Chris Brazzell, Braylon Staley. Mike Matthews is a speedster. They are better at receiver than they were last year. We have to be fair on that. They are much better at receiver this year. That's helping Tennessee look a lot better too, and Joey Aguilar. I've said this for a while. I think Nico Iamaleava was severely limited on what he could do last year because the receivers had so many issues. Brew McCoy had lost the pep in his step. There's a reason he had to medically retire. Dante Thornton was hurt. Squirrel White was hurt. They never really got anything going. But they were the issue with Nico that you see with Nico and that you didn't see with Joey Aguilar, and we said it a lot, is the willingness to throw the ball up to trust his receivers to make plays. Nico could have done that with Chris Brazzell a lot last year. Joey Aguilar and Jake Merklinger did it over the weekend. Again, grain of salt, East Tennessee State, but they did both throw it. They did both give their receivers chance to make plays. Nico doesn't like to throw to a receiver unless he's totally wide open, and that's a very big issue. Now, again, there's a youth factor in that. And maybe with time developing in Heupel system or whatever system, he could have gotten a lot better. And I still think Nico would have been better this year. There's a chance that Nico could be doing what Joey Aguilar could have been doing with the experience he had. But I think Joey Aguilar has so much more experience that he processes so much quicker. And maybe he's just better at processing, period. That's always possible too. But I also think the experience of playing the position allows Joey Aguilar to process better. And I think with that in mind, there is no way you can look at Nico Iamaleava and Joey Aguilar and not say Tennessee didn't win that trade at this point. Now, it's also true, again, the other part of this is true. UCLA is a bad football team. There is nobody around Nico Iamaleava. And so really the person taking the biggest L in all of this is not UCLA, although they are. They would have been bad with Joey Aguilar too. This is Nico Iamaleava taking the biggest L. The concept of wanting to play in a pro-style system, which is the argument they made, it was about money, by the way, but they claimed it was about playing in a pro-style system. You went to a really, really bad school for that. Maybe Tino Sinceri does have pro-style concepts in his system, but you got to actually have talent to be able to showcase your abilities, and there is none on UCLA. That is, I can't stress this enough, a horrible football team in so many different ways. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
The poll question up: did the Vols officially win the trade with UCLA? 91% of you are saying yes, Joey Aguilar is better. 9% of you say no, the Vols just had better talent. But I have to go to Hoghead, who is right on this. If UT had Nico, they'd be 2-0. If UCLA had Joey, they'd be 0-2. The records would still be exactly the same. All right. Now, again, the criticism, and this is a great point by Adam, I don't see him taking initiative on any play. Nico is waiting and reacting. That shows me he doesn't really understand what he's trying to do out there. That is true. He's also learning a new offense. His fault he's learning a new offense, but this is what happens when you learn a new offense. So Nico is a younger player than Joey Aguilar. He's learning a new offense than Joey Aguilar. By the way, to be fair, also a more complex system than Joey Aguilar is learning, because don't forget this. Josh Heupel's offense is very easy for quarterbacks to learn. Very easy. It's much more difficult for receivers to pick up Josh Heupel's offense. Nico is playing in a more pro-style offense with a lot more different concepts that's going to make things a lot trickier. Okay, and I think that's a big reason he looks worse. But I don't think there is any debate that Tennessee at this point won the trade, but I don't know if it's as clear as people think. So that I mean, guys, again, they would still be 2-0 if Nico Iamaleava were on the team this year. And they still may be 2-0 if Nico Iamaleava, they still may have looked this good offensively. I mean, again, give Joey Aguilar credit for willing to throw the ball up to let the receivers make plays, but Nico Iamaleava did not have the help at receiver he needed last year because of the injuries at the position that we told you about. And that really stood out. That's why maybe he was less willing to throw it up and let receivers make plays. Now, Pseudo-Sham says, I'm not convinced that they would not have beat UNLV with Joey. I mean, I don't know. You could say that, but again, it's Nico Iamaleava led the team in rushing. Now, Jamian Thomas did have 5 carries for 43 yards. They're just not. Part of this is Tino Sinceri calling horrible games. Okay, so again, the biggest loser in all this is Nico Iamaleava himself for picking UNLV. And I know a lot of those yards he picked up were late in the game, but he did have a 74.8 total QBR. Should be good enough to win. It was just, I mean, they're just a bad football team. And I think that stands out more than anything else. Is this is just a really bad football team all the way across the board. And I don't think there's any debating that at this point. So portions of the program. So again, before I move on, I just think that I think that Nico Iamaleava and Joey Aguilar, I think it's more, I actually think it's more about the teams around them than it is the quarterbacks. But that's just me. Now, please hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn on your notifications. Portions of the program brought to you by Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations, your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chat with TwoTsMortgage.com. Chat with TwoTsMortgage.com. It is time for Bank on It. And it's brought to you by Commercial Bank member FDIC. And Bank on It is this. It involves Tennessee, Georgia. Tennessee is set to host Georgia this weekend. Early lines, and I'm going to write about this a little later, over under 49.5. Georgia favored by 6.5 to 7 points, according to FanDuel. Depending on where you go. 6.5 on FanDuel, 49.5 over under. Not much change from a 7.5 line at the beginning of the season when people talked about it. Now, Georgia opened as a 7.5 point favorite Saturday night, and the line has moved to 6.5 points through Sunday. College Game Day is now heading to Knoxville for the Tennessee-Georgia game. Everybody's excited about this one. It's the first time I think we can look at Tennessee since Josh Heupel has been there and say they have a realistic chance of beating Georgia. Now, I look stupid because I picked them to beat Georgia in 2022 on the road. Georgia was just better. Let me say this up front. Georgia is still just better than Tennessee. But with everything happening, with the line moving, and with College Game Day coming to town, bank on it. And this is brought to you by Commercial Bank member FDIC, Life Made Better. Tennessee, Georgia is gaining a lot more magnitude as a game and becoming a lot more interesting as a matchup than anybody ever thought it would be at the beginning of the year before the first 2 weeks of the season. And that is a great sign for the Vols. That does mean that Tennessee, to this point, has already somewhat overachieved expectations. Even though they were favored in the first 2 games to start 2-0, it's very clear that many people and analysts and Vegas and betting odds think more highly of Tennessee than they did at the start of the year. And it's very clear that Tennessee is positioned to be much better than initially predicted before the season started. And they will be. That's Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank member FDIC. Life Made Better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right, that was Bank on it, and I'm going to tell you guys why. And this is actually going to be the poll question now. Does Tennessee have a greater chance of beating Georgia than you thought before the season? Yes, no. A few things on why the excitement is a little bit greater on this one. Greater than they expected. And it's not all Tennessee related. Okay. Tennessee, though, the offense looks better than it did last year against inferior competition. Accepting that it's inferior against inferior competition, the offense looks like it used to look under Josh Heupel. That's the first reason. The second reason, Georgia hasn't looked that good. Georgia has not yet covered this year. They failed to cover in their first two games, and I know it was a weather delay, and I know it was rain and all of that, but they looked horrible against Austin Peay over the weekend. And finally, and this is the big one, this is very important, there was no other game to hype up this weekend, so they have to hype it up. What happened? Where did game day initially plan to go at the beginning of the year, guys? Let's be honest. They wanted to go to either Texas A&M, Notre Dame, or Florida and LSU. Well, Notre Dame lost their first game to Miami, so they're 0-1. Texas A&M has failed to cover in their 2-0 start in both of their games. Florida just got upset by South Florida. We'll get to that in a little while. When you take that into account, where else are you going to go but Tennessee, Georgia? So the hype is much greater than people thought it would be because Georgia's looking worse than people expected. Tennessee is looking fine, like they haven't missed a beat with their new quarterback. And the other games that were supposed to be better than Tennessee, Georgia this week have fallen apart. So with that, taking that into account, we have to point this out that, yeah, there's a lot greater expectations for Tennessee to beat Georgia. Now let's talk about why they have a great chance to beat Georgia. A few things. I talked to you guys about 2022 and why I thought I had picked Tennessee and I was wrong. Tennessee doesn't want to be playing Georgia in November. It's better that they're playing in September. Here's why. Georgia's a better football team. They are. But they run standard pro-style offenses. When you do that, it takes time for offenses and units to gel. So you're worse in September. You're better in November than you are in September when you run a pro-style offense with NFL talent. When you are a system team, like Tennessee with an offensive system, you pretty much have that picked up when September rolls around if you have the right guys in there. And so Tennessee's already got its system picked up. So over time, the pro-style offense comes better if you have the players. And yes, Georgia has the players. But in September, the system can neutralize the pro-style offense. What's an example of this? The 90s. Why did Florida always own Tennessee? Spurrier in Florida had a system with the fun and gun. Tennessee was running a pro-style offense. And by the time Tennessee had gelled, it was after the Florida game had already happened. And that's why the one time they did play in December during the former Spurrier heyday, Tennessee won. Because if you look at the NFL, Tennessee always had better NFL talent than Florida. Florida just had better in-game X's and O's coaching, which plays a larger role in September than it does in November. Now, Kirby Smart is a great X's and O's coach. I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying Tennessee neutralizes that advantage by getting Georgia at home earlier in the year rather than later in the year. Getting them at home, like I just said, is another big deal. Now, they got blown out 2 years ago at home. That was with Carson Beck and a Georgia team that looked a lot more together and was also, again, in November. Most notably, pro-style offenses take even longer to gel in September if there's a bunch of new talent, and Georgia's got a bunch of new talent. Carson Beck is gone. Yes, Gunnar Stockton started the playoff game last year. He lost. There's a lot of concerns about him. He has not alleviated those concerns. Taking all that into account, yes, Tennessee has a much better chance of beating Georgia than initially thought, and it has a lot to do with the fact that Georgia is a lot worse and a little bit less, liked, a little bit less touted than people thought it would be at the beginning of the year. Now, Sam brings up a point. I had stopped talking like this is the same old Tennessee offensive scheme, but it's not. That's true, Sam. It's not. And Sam adds, it's much more complex this year, and it'll soon show. I actually agree with you, Sam, but it is still an offense that, because of the way it's schematically designed, it's still easier to pick up than a standard pro-style offense would be. Heupel added some new wrinkles. Wasn't that hard for the quarterback to pick up those new wrinkles. Okay, that's why he brought in Seth Littrell. And so I think that's a really big deal. Now, Crawford Watson says, I've been saying Tennessee will beat Georgia ever since they announced the early date. Crawford, I kind of agree with you to a certain degree. I haven't made my pick yet, but I did say at the beginning of the year Tennessee would beat Georgia. And I thought the early date was a big advantage for the Vols, getting them at Neyland Stadium. Georgia hasn't really gotten things together to this point. Now, I do think that Unsung says, how long has it been since Tennessee has thrown a touchdown pass against Georgia? Unsung, that's a good question. Didn't they throw one last year? Didn't Nico have at least one last year? I thought he did. But you might be right. Okay, now that's a real stat. Okay, did Nico Iamaleava throw a touchdown pass against Georgia last year? No. I'm actually doing this, guys, in real time. So you guys tell me the last time Tennessee threw a touchdown pass in Georgia. It wasn't 2023. Did Hendon Hooker throw one? I don't think he did. It wasn't in 2022, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Hendon Hooker didn't throw one. It wasn't in 2021. And Georgia won 41-17, or was it in 2021? Yes, Hendon Hooker threw a touchdown pass against Georgia in 2021. So 3 straight years Tennessee hasn't had a touchdown pass against Georgia. That's a great question, Unsung. That's wild to think about. Now, the poll question up. Does Tennessee have a greater chance of beating Georgia than you thought before the season? Yes, 84% say yes, 16% say no. That's the big deal. Now, Derek wants to say that you don't agree with me that this offense is easy to pick up. That may be true, but it's obviously hard for young players to be trusted or effective in this offense until proven otherwise. Now, that is actually a fair point that, like, sometimes youth is part of it. The offense is picked up quickly if you have experience playing college football. It is a little more difficult to pick up if you're a younger player because you have to pick up this offense and you have to just adjust to the game of college football. But if you've adjusted to the style of playing college football, you pick it up quickly. That's why Hendon Hooker picked it up. That's why you're right, Derek. Older players do pick it up, but Tennessee has at least, like, the players on their team. Yes, while they are a young team, they have guys that have been in the system for at least a year, so they should have picked up the offense by now. And the guys that haven't been are older players who should pick it up easily. So that's a big deal. That all stands out. And with that in mind, I do think they should be excited about how things have gone. Portions of the program brought to you by Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection at strict standards. HempHouseChatWith2Ts.com, HempHouseChatWith2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. When we come back, Tennessee has moved in the top 15 in both polls, but there's something very inconsistent about that. What the H? It's going to talk about the motives behind why they're in the top 15. Stick with us 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Hello, ma'am. I'm here to look at that plumbing problem.
Oh boy. Yep. You're gonna need a whole new sink.
If this toilet is no good, you're gonna need a new one ASAP. You are not gonna believe this. You're all out of milk. Have you heard about our service plan?
I need to call Scott's.
Scott's Plumbing, your trusted neighborhood plumber since 1977.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Hit that like and subscribe button. We broadcast you live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, New and UC, Tennessee's largest Ford Lincoln volume dealer, and the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. All right. It is time for this day in Tennessee football history. And it's a two-parter because whenever Tennessee plays on the road on this day, September the 8th, in an SEC game, they ball out. What do I mean by that? On this day in 1990, Tony Thompson stepped in for Tennessee after Chuck Webb, unfortunately, the week before had suffered what turned out to be a career-ending injury. And Tony Thompson against Mississippi State rushed for 248 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was a senior. He was not supposed to be great, but that sparked him leading the SEC in rushing despite not even starting the first 2 games of the year. Tennessee won that day 40-7. 11 years later, on September the 8th, another running back who was not supposed to be great had a 200-yard game for Tennessee en route to leading the SEC in rushing. That was Travis Stevens when he rushed for over 200 yards on 41 carries at Arkansas in September in a 13-3 win on September the 8th, 2001. That actually was Tennessee's last win before 9/11 happened, interestingly enough. And then after 9/11, they canceled the Florida game the next week and moved it to December. But Travis Stevens rushed for over 200 yards on 41 carries that day. So 2 games, 11 years apart on September the 8th, in which the running back had over 200 yards rushing, and it was a running back who was not supposed to be good. That is this day in Tennessee sports history, which is brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow more on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. Facebook.com/sportstreasurestn, Facebook.com/sportstreasurestn.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Tennessee football, after being totally disrespected in the AP and coaches poll to start the season, has moved up to number 15, took a bigger jump after beating ETSU than they did after beating a Power 5 school in Syracuse. What the H? What the H is brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com. The Vols started the year number 24 in the AP poll and number 18 in the coaches poll, for those who don't remember. Okay, it was number 18 in the coaches poll and number 24 in the AP poll. After beating Syracuse, a Power 5 school, they jumped up to number 17 in the coaches poll, just 1 spot and only 2 spots in the AP poll to number 22. Yet somehow, after beating an FCS school, they jumped 2 spots in the coaches poll and 7 spots in the AP poll to get to number 15. How do you jump so much higher from beating an FCS school than beating a Power 5 school? Here are a few teams that Tennessee leapfrogged over the weekend. In the AP poll, for some God knows why reason, I kid you not, here are just a few of them that they leapfrogged. They leapfrogged, I'm sorry, I pulled up the wrong date. They leapfrogged Alabama. Now, they didn't leapfrog Alabama when Alabama lost to Florida State and Tennessee beat a Power 5 school, But they do leapfrog Alabama when both teams drop 70 in a game. Why? Why do they leapfrog Alabama in the AP poll? How does that make sense? They leapfrog Ole Miss, who beat Kentucky on the road. Fine, but Tennessee beat Syracuse 2 weeks ago, and Tennessee blew out ETSU. Why would they leapfrog Ole Miss this week and not last week? Doesn't make sense, does it? They leapfrogged Texas A&M. Why? Why? Tennessee blew out ETSU, but Texas A&M did get an FBS win over the weekend, and it's 2-0. Why would they leapfrog Texas A&M in the AP poll? Are you guys following me here? Are you guys noticing the stupidity of the rankings? That's just 3. All right, now that's how they got to number 19, by the way, in the AP poll, is because they were 22 and they leapfrogged 3 teams for random God knows why reason. Nobody knows. Now, Florida and Arizona State both lost. That's why they leapfrogged both of them. That gets them to 17, and Michigan also lost, which gets them to number 16. As far as who else they leapfrogged, if I'm trying to pull it up now, I'm at number 16 in the AP poll. I'm looking up exactly who else they leapfrogged. But they leapfrogged 3 teams who lost. As of right now, they leapfrogged 3 teams who lost, and 3 teams for just some rando God knows why reason. I mean, that's really the only way to. It's really the only way to make it. The only thing you can really say is for some rando God knows why reason they leapfrogged 3 other teams, and that's something that we're having a hard time figuring out. So again, Alabama, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, they leapfrog for no reason. SMU, Florida, and Michigan and Arizona State. SMU, because they lost 2. That's how they got to number 15. In the coaches poll, they just leapfrogged SMU and Florida because both of those teams lost, and that's how they got to number 15. Coaches poll is at least consistent, I guess. They're just moving them up as other teams lose. Why did the AP poll make such a jump? I have a theory. Here's why the AP poll leapfrogged Tennessee so much after beating ETSU. They need a storyline. They need a storyline for Tennessee, Georgia, and they need to increase the hype behind it. This is a move to increase the magnitude behind Tennessee, Georgia. Why? It's the best game this week with the most hype, and so they have to get more storylines behind it. That's the only reason they did that. What the H brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. Looking for affordable game day jewelry? A Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com, rickterryjewelry.com.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Okay, so I'm setting up the poll question now. Why did Tennessee jump 7 spots in the AP poll after only 2 spots last week? Voters realized they were wrong, more teams lost, or to manufacture Tennessee GA hype? Here's why I'm leaning it is to manufacture Tennessee Georgia hype, and this is my big thing. Again, and I talked about this on the last segment, the big game this week was supposed to be Florida and LSU. It was supposed to be Florida and LSU. And unfortunately, it's not because Florida lost to South Florida. So all of a sudden, South Florida and Miami on the CW network is the big game this week in Florida, as South Florida is undefeated and visiting the Hurricanes. So Florida LSU is supposed to be the big game. It's not because Florida lost to South Florida. They're 1-1. LSU's number 3 at 2-0. Florida's visiting LSU. Now LSU's favored by almost double digits, 9.5 by 2 scores. The other potential big game was Texas A&M Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame did have a tough game at Miami. You thought it was possible they would have a loss going into this week, but you hoped they wouldn't, and you thought they were better than Miami. So Notre Dame is still just 0-1, and Texas A&M is visiting them. And with that in mind, you can't have the hype behind that because Texas A&M hasn't beaten anybody, and Notre Dame at 0-1 is just not going to have the same hype. So you have to manufacture the hype for Tennessee, Georgia. Hence the reason you need a top 15 matchup. Yes, that I stand by this. This is why Tennessee and Georgia, this is why Tennessee has moved up to number 15. You need a top 15 matchup. College game day is coming into town this week because they have to by default, because Florida, LSU, and Texas A&M Notre Dame was neither one of those had the hype they thought it would at the beginning of the year. Meanwhile, South Florida and Miami is the second biggest game on the docket. You don't like Group of 5 schools if you're the AP voters. You need to manufacture hype. Another game you thought you could get hype from would be Clemson, Georgia Tech, but Clemson lost to LSU at home. So again, you need to manufacture hype. And to manufacture hype, you need College Game Day. You need Tennessee to be a top 15 team in both polls. So with that in mind, I would say straight up, Tennessee is going to, I would say straight up, Tennessee is going to, they are top 15 solely because people need to manufacture the Tennessee Georgia hype. The poll question up: why did Tennessee jump 7 spots in the AP poll after only 2 spots last week? Voters realized they were wrong, 46%. More teams lost, 0%. To manufacture Tennessee Georgia hype, 54%. It's absolutely to manufacture Tennessee Georgia hype. It is absolutely to manufacture Tennessee Georgia hype. The biggest one is Alabama. Again, I have told you guys I believe in Alabama long-term, funny enough. But this isn't me standing Alabama on this. It is, how do you drop them after the way they played over the weekend? So Alabama, yes, they lost to Florida State 31-17. You dropped them in the rankings, but you keep them ahead of Tennessee. But then they go and beat Louisiana in the row 73-0. That's when you decide to drop them even further below Tennessee. That one, because Tennessee would beat ETSU 72-17. Alabama beat an FBS school by a larger margin than Tennessee beat an FCS school, and that's when you decide to move Alabama ahead of Tennessee, not when Alabama loses their opener. Please, it's all about manufacturing hype, guys. This is absolutely ridiculous. There's no way that, look, Tennessee should have been top 15 in the AP poll to begin with. The original sin was not having them top 15 to begin with. And I do believe that. But at the same time, they need hype. Voters are manufacturing hype. This is no different than, for those who don't remember, and I'm sure everybody does, this was a big story back in 2022, the week of the inaugural college football playoff rankings. I believe that would have been week, and you guys can correct me on this, that would have been week 10. Tennessee was set to face Georgia that week. Now, Georgia was number 1 in the AP poll and number 1 in the coaches poll. Georgia, Tennessee, and Ohio State were the top 3. Michigan and Clemson were alternating at 4 and 5. Georgia was number 1 in the AP and coaches poll. They decided to make Tennessee number 1 in the college football playoff rankings as they were going to visit Georgia and drop Georgia to number 3. That was for storylines. How is Georgia number 3 and Tennessee number 1? They wanted that storyline, so when Georgia blows out Tennessee in what they knew would be a dull game, it stands out that, oh, they beat the number 1 team in the country. That's how they do this, guys. All right. It's the way this works. And that is why, that is how Tennessee ended up being number 1. I'm sorry. That is how Tennessee ended up being in the top 15 in these polls. I think it's kind of ridiculous, honestly, but you know, what do I know? That's just how things are. All right. Portions of the program are brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. hdknoxville.com. hdknoxville.com. Hit the like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn on your notifications. When we come back, SEC Power Rankings time. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the hook sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Hello, ma'am. I'm here to look at that plumbing problem.
Oh boy. Yep. You're gonna need a whole new sink.
If this toilet is no good, you're gonna need a new one ASAP. You are not gonna believe this. You're all out of milk. Have you heard about our service plan?
I need to call Scott's.
Scott's Plumbing, your trusted neighborhood plumber since 1977.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Hit that like and subscribe button. Once again, ring the bell. Turn on your notifications. As I say, we are building something great here at Off the Hook Sports, and we want you to be a part of it. So it is almost time for our SEC Power Rankings. And I think they are going to be a little bit intriguing to you guys. They're not going to be the prettiest power rankings, I'll tell you that, because there's just a lot that we have to figure out. However, I think it's very clear that everything about the SEC right now is unpredictable. Now, I'm going to talk about how I do my top 10 in a minute. I do my SEC power rankings a little differently. My top 10 is only, like, my pure top 10 would be how I would do a college football playoff ranking. How do I do that? I don't do body of work. I mean, I only do body of work. I don't do what I think the better teams are. I do the best team. I mean, I do the record and the schedule strength. I don't go schedule strength early on, though, for top 10, which I'll get to, because every team is usually 0, 250, 500, 750, 1,000. I mean, it's like, I'm sorry, every team is 0, 500, or 1,000. That's all they're batting. It's 0, 500, or 1,000. And if you beat a team, that team's already going to be 500. So it's almost impossible to use schedule strength. So I just basically do my tiers over, did you beat a Power 5, a Power 4 school, and did you win on the road or at home? And what's the record of that Power 4 school? So it's very, 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 very limited on what I could do with my power rankings. I take those things into account. And I also take how you're playing into account as well. And I'm not going to get fooled. Now, Vegas doesn't get fooled, and you're supposed to do power rankings with how Vegas would do them, which is they don't get totally fooled. Like, they're not, for instance, Georgia has looked ugly the last 2 weeks. Tennessee's looked better. You're still not going to favor Tennessee over Georgia on a neutral field, and Vegas is not doing that. I'm not basing my power rankings. I would do my power rankings like that in late October. I'm not doing that in early September, though, because I still somewhat like to pretend as if last season did not happen at all. So that's how I'm setting this up. That's how I'm doing my SEC power rankings, and we're going to separate them by tiers. And the tiers are this, okay? In serious trouble, tier 4. Don't know anything yet, tier 3. Could be good, could be bad. I'm sorry, tier 4. Don't know anything yet. Looking good. Or how about this? Tier 4, don't know anything yet. In good shape. And then elite. Yes, I'm going to go elite for now. Will be how I say it. Elite for now will be my 4 tiers. And again, this is based on how you were playing at the time of this. So again, Dave having to take care of a couple things today, so I got to do my Cooper Mays impression, and I apologize to you guys up front who don't like it, but this is just how I roll. So without the soundboard, here we go. Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe. And for those who don't know, again, who are new to the show, I do that whenever Dave's not on, because I don't have the soundboard, and Cooper Mays tees us off for 4 downs. By the way, 4 downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Coop here, first down. In trouble. Kentucky at number 16, Florida at number 15. I realize Kentucky played Ole Miss tough. I don't care. Honestly, I really don't care. Kentucky lost at home a week after they lost 20. They barely beat Toledo 24-16. Mark Stoops' program is in serious, dire straits. And that was shown last Saturday. Maybe they'll get better over time, but I don't think there's much to celebrate about covering at home against Ole Miss when the week before you only beat Toledo by 8. Kentucky belongs at number 16. But at number 15, and who has the case to be number 16, is Florida. Florida has a strong case. I would still pick Florida on a neutral field over Kentucky, and I don't think South Florida at home is a bad loss overall. It is if you're Florida. It is if you're Florida. I'm not changing that. And Billy Napier's in serious trouble, which I'll get to. But I do think that's enough. Keeping it close is enough to say, as of right now, they are better than Kentucky. I could be swayed, but they're better. But either way, those two schools in serious trouble. Serious trouble. Cooper Mays here. Suck it down. Thank you, Coop. Schools in good shape. All right. I'm sorry. No, not in good shape. Sorry. My second down is nobody knows anything yet. Nobody knows anything yet. Okay. That's my next one, is nobody knows anything yet. Now, there are 4 schools in this one. Actually, 5. I'm going to put 5 in this one. Okay. Oh, no, I'm going to go higher. I'm going to go 6. Okay. So there are 6 schools in this one, okay? These schools could be good, could be bad, but they certainly have a lot more to prove. Now, number 14 in my SEC power rankings after last week's slate of games is going to be Texas A&M. Look, they're 2-0, but they have failed to cover against 2 group of 5 schools. Mike Elko's team has a good bit more to prove. I think there is good reason for concern about this team right now. And with that in mind, I think Mike Elko, there's no way I can sit there and say that they belong anywhere above, that they deserve to be anywhere above 14. They still have a good bit more to prove. We will go down the pipe on that. But as of right now, yeah, they still have a good bit more to prove. Also, nobody knows anything yet. Arkansas blew out Arkansas State over the weekend, Butch Jones's team. But, they still haven't beaten anybody of significance, so I have them at number 13. Number 12 is South Carolina. Now, South Carolina looked hideous over the weekend in their win over South Carolina State. They won 38-10, but it was a really slow start for them. They also beat Virginia Tech, but Virginia Tech, I think, is a bad program right now. They're 0-2, and it wasn't as pretty of a win as the next team on this list, which is Vanderbilt, who is number 11, having beaten Virginia Tech. And they get credit for beating Virginia Tech. But again, I think Virginia Tech they are 0-2. I don't see a lot of greatness in that, but still South Carolina is number 12, Vanderbilt's number 11. They still have some things to prove. And then Ole Miss is number 10. I have Ole Miss at number 10 because, yes, they do have a good road win at Kentucky, but I told you I think Kentucky's bad and they're in big trouble, and that's what stands out. Now, here are my really, really, really hot takes on nobody knows anything yet. Georgia's number 9. I could be convinced to push Georgia below that, to be fair to you guys, given how awful they looked against Austin Peay over the weekend. You know what? And I will. I'm sorry. No, I'll keep them here. These are the schools that I'm naming that are Power 5 schools, Power 4 schools that haven't beaten a Group of 5 school, but we still just should be elite, and I just can't bring myself to put them too low. Georgia, I have at and yes, I'm doing this in real time with you guys. But Georgia I have at number 9, and I could be convinced to put them lower because of how ugly they looked against Austin Peay. Alabama's number 8. Alabama did look very good against Louisiana Monroe over the weekend. 73-0 win. Yes, it was Louisiana Monroe, but at the same time, that has to stand out. Now, those are all nobody knows anything yet. Here's where I'm going to get controversial, because I'm going to go in good shape, okay? These are schools in good shape with quality wins or looking good in certain games that have given us enough reason to believe in them. So, that is number 7, Mississippi State. Now, you might say Mississippi State deserves to be higher after beating Arizona State, but they beat them at home, and Arizona State didn't barely, but looked hideous against Northern Arizona in the first game of the year, won 38-19. So I think there's real questions about how good Arizona State truly is. So that's why I have Mississippi State just at number 7 right now. The same with Missouri, who won 42-31 against Kansas. Beat them at home, There's questions about how good Kansas is, though. And because of that, I have to have them at number 6. Number 5. Now, this is going to make a lot of people upset, but I have Texas at number 5. I get it. They don't have a Power 5 win, but I think playing Ohio State close on the road actually has to count for something. We massively overreacted to Texas losing that game. And I'm the one who said they're overrated at the beginning of the year, by the way. But they played the defending national champions on the road, and they only lost by a touchdown and had a chance to win it late. And we're acting like that's the worst thing in the world. They're 1-1. They looked fine against San Jose State. I think they're going to be okay. And I think playing Ohio State close on the road actually outweighs beating Arizona State or Kansas at home. It outweighs beating Kentucky on the road. It outweighs beating Virginia Tech away from home. So that's why, yes, I actually have Texas all the way up at number 5 for that reason. 4 Downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. New and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer.
Right now, get 0% APR, 0 down, and 0 payments for 90 days on select models, plus 2 years complimentary maintenance.
Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Oh, SEC said a Cooper Mays here. 4th down. Well, thank you, Coop. All right, 4th down is this. The team's elite for now. Number 4 is LSU. Now, LSU has a road win over a Power 5 school, should be higher. My problem with LSU, as of right now, is I can't look past that win over the weekend over Louisiana Tech. They just look so hideous. So when you get a Power 5 road win, great, but then you beat Louisiana Tech the next week and you look ugly. And the team you beat that you're taking a lot of credit for, Clemson, also looked ugly in their win. Enough for me to really start to question LSU as a team. And so with that in mind, I got LSU down at number 4 because Clemson looks like they were overrated and they struggled against Louisiana Tech. I'm all of a sudden not as high on them as I was last week. We're going to see, but that's where I am. Number 3 is, okay, bear with me with what I'm about to say, but it's Oklahoma. I get they just beat Michigan. Very good win. It was at home. We have questions about how good Michigan is. And against Southern Illinois in the first game, they still only won 35-3. Just ugly enough for us to say, I can't sit there and say Oklahoma is right now the best team in the SEC, while they did, like, on paper, get the best win for the headlines this year for the SEC so far outside of LSU, and they deserve credit for how they beat Michigan. I still don't have them hired because of the fact that I think Oklahoma, it was a home game and they looked ugly in the first week, and I have questions about Michigan. This is somewhat projection on this point. So I have them at number 3 right now. Number 2, I have Tennessee. Dropping 70-20 TSU and beating Syracuse. Yes, Syracuse did win an ugly game against UConn, but UConn was 9-3 last year. They're not a bad program anymore, and Syracuse came back to win that game. So that's not a bad win for Tennessee, and the way they blew them out, Tennessee deserves to be number 2. But believe it or not, and guys, this pains me to say it, but my number 1 team in the SEC power rankings right now, I think more than any other team, is Auburn. Auburn dominated Ball State last weekend, 42-3. After beating Baylor on the road the week before, 38-24. And now Baylor looks like a good win, and Auburn beat them convincingly because Baylor went around and beat SMU. Screwed up one of my bets. I'll tell you that. I thought SMU had that game in the bag. So with all that in mind, Jackson Arnold was 24 of 28 for 251 yards and 3 touchdowns over the weekend. Jackson Arnold looks elite all of a sudden, and that's enough for me to say, you know what? I got Auburn as the number 1 team in my SEC power rankings. Call me crazy, but I just had to put them at number 1 for right now. Portions of the program are brought to you by Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live your life to the fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. Link is in the chat. It is time for the stat of the day. And I'm keeping it simple. Stat of the day is this, and it's the storyline of the weekend, so it deserves to be the stat of the day on Monday. Tennessee scored 72 points against East Tennessee State University on Saturday. That is a record for the most points ever scored at Neyland Stadium, beating last year's record of 71 points when they beat Kent State, which beat the 2000 record of 70 against Louisiana Monroe. Stat of the day brought to you by Joe Neuber Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Neuber Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. JoeNeuberCollision.com, JoeNeuberCollision.com. When we come back, it's time for our week 2 recap. A lot of interesting things to bring up in this one. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the hook. Sports.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume 4 dealer.
Right now, get 0% APR, 0 down, and 0 payments for 90 days on select models, plus 2 years complimentary maintenance.
Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Welcome back to the program. Portions of the show brought to you by Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive brake alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com. Walk in and say, "Hey, Bo, Off the Hook Sports sent you." QualityTirePros.com. It is time for our Week 2 college football recap, and it is time to get rolling because a lot of storylines happened over the weekend, and we're going to get to them all. And it starts with, first, this is Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity Matters, cityheatandair.com. Hot or Cold gets rolling with our Week 2 recap, our biggest takeaways from Week 2 of the college football season. Takeaway 1, Oklahoma really, truly looks like it's the real deal and has turned a corner under Brent Venables. Either that or Michigan is falling apart under Sharon Moore. But the truth be told is we don't know which one it is. And we don't know which one it is because Michigan was 7-5 last year. They had all the issues with the sign stealing, and they look significantly worse having had that ended. And that game was at Oklahoma. There's just a lot we don't know about the Oklahoma-Michigan series because while Oklahoma did get a quality win and seems to have turned a corner, it could also be true that Michigan is just a bad football team. But for now, Oklahoma's got to be riding high because of what happened. And so, am I hot or cold on how Oklahoma won at Michigan? Against Michigan? I'm hot. I'm hot. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm cold. I'm cold. I don't think it's going to change my opinion on Oklahoma long term. But for now, at the very least, they deserve some credit. That was a good win, and they can enjoy it for a little while. Alrighty, my next takeaway. Mississippi State scores a big win over Arizona State. Am I hot or cold on Mississippi State pulling off that win? I'm hot on it. Now, let me be clear on this. Arizona State's not a good football team this year. That's not the same team that made the college football playoff last year. They're not. They barely beat Northern Arizona at the start of the year. Cam Scatterbo is now gone. I don't know why, but with everybody back, they're just not the same team. And not being the same team and playing in Starkville, a 2-hour trip for them, that's just a lot of things that could go wrong. However, Mississippi State is doing exactly what it needs to do to build momentum in Jeff Lebby's second year to prove that it's back. And the more you build that momentum, the more the confidence develops, the better you get as time goes on because the snowball starts. And that's going to continue because guess what? They got Alcorn State at home this week. They're winning that game. Okay. And then they get Northern Illinois at home the week after. They're probably winning that game. They're going to be 4-0 with Tennessee heading to town on September the 27th. I think Mississippi State will have a lot. Tennessee's not a good road team, by the way, under Josh Heupel and under the lights in big moments. That could be an upset win for them. They could get to 5-0. It is very highly possible. So because of what this kind of reminds me of, for those who don't remember, 2022 when Tennessee beat Pitt, I wrote in the summer, in October of 2021 at my old position, I actually wrote a column that it was right after LSU fired Ed Orgeron, and we knew Florida was going to fire Dan Mullen. I wrote a column that Tennessee was uniquely positioned to go 5-0 to start 2022 and have a legendary start to the year. And I wrote the reason is because they will be facing LSU and Florida under new head coaches, and they will be facing a Pittsburgh team that lost a lot of talent, but Pittsburgh on the road would actually be their toughest test. And if they could get past Pittsburgh, they would start the year 5-0. Well, the next year they got past Pittsburgh, and then they beat Florida and LSU, manhandled LSU, and that got them to 5-0. They were a top 10 team by that point, and the momentum was enough for them to beat Alabama at home, and that's what made it a magical season with Hendon Hooker. You could see that with Mississippi State, and by the way, Jeff Lebby is a Josh Heupel disciple, so I'm hot on that. Billy Napier is done. Florida lost at home to South Florida over the weekend. Billy Napier's done. It's over. He's not going to come back from this. There's no way he can come back from this. I'm hot on that. I don't see how Florida recovers. Things were very overrated with how Florida finished last year. DJ Lagway was massively overrated. He didn't play well in any of their final 4 wins that everybody thought was the storyline behind Florida was, they finished the season so strong. They won their final 5 games and they knocked Ole Miss out of the college football playoff and they upset LSU. And now DJ Lagway's returning. They're going to be so much better. A few things were wrong with that scenario. One, DJ Lagway was overrated last year. He did not play well in those final 4 games of the regular season to win. None of his numbers were good in any of those games. He lit up the bowl game against Tulane. It's a bowl game. You have to throw those stats out the window. And it was against a group of 5 school. On top of that, they beat Ole Miss after Ole Miss expounded all of its energy beating Georgia and had a massive hangover in that game. And they beat LSU after LSU quit on the season because it lost to Alabama the week before. So Florida was already somewhat overrated. They had a lot more to prove. And losing to South Florida put Billy Napier on the hottest of hot seats. And am I hot on him being fired? Yes, it's over. Billy Napier's done. But on the other side of that, South Florida, clear-cut group of 5 favorite at this point. There's no debate. South Florida beat the group of 5 teams to make the college football playoff last year, and then they went on the road and beat the Power 4 team this year, who they beat a Power 4 team this year, who on the road the week after. They got another one this week, by the way, at Miami. If they win that one, I mean, we got to have a real conversation about South Florida. So, and Alex Golish, former Tennessee offensive coordinator, is going to get a head coaching job somewhere very soon, and it might be at Florida. So watch out. Historic rivalry thriller wins in non-conference matchups. A bunch of historic rivalries that are non-conference games took place over the weekend, and they were all thrillers in their own way. I'm talking about Baylor SMU, an old Southwest Conference rivalry. Missouri Kansas, an old Big 12 Big 8 rivalry. And Iowa State, an in-state non-conference rivalry that has been going on for a long, long, long time. Baylor, Iowa State, and Missouri all won. Thrillers. Baylor won a shootout against SMU, coming back from 14 down to win 48-45. They all of a sudden look legit, and that makes Auburn's win look better because they beat a team that made the college football playoff last year. Missouri beat Kansas in what was an epic thriller, border rivalry that used to exist. Missouri wins 42-31, and it was a lot closer, and Eli Drinkwitz should be very happy with how that played out. Iowa State beat Iowa in your typical Iowa State-Iowa fashion. They won 16-13 in a game that couldn't even cross 30 points in the total. Thrillers for all of them. You love those type of games. We need more of them in college football. What has happened to Oklahoma State? Now, this is a real story to me that, it's not getting enough credit. Mike Gundy went 3-9 last year, was already somewhat on the hot seat, and then decided to ruffle feathers, talk a lot of trash before last Saturday's game against Oregon, and then Oregon beat them 69-3. We're talking about Oregon, Dan Lanning. That program is really good. We knew that. That's not really a takeaway for me. The takeaway is that Oklahoma State is that bad. What is wrong with them? We need to figure that out. Mike Gundy may be done. And Tennessee tried to hire him a couple of times, by the way, for those who don't remember. So that was just hideous to watch. Texas and Alabama. Oh, two more. Why so many ugly games? For those who don't realize, there were a ton of ugly games over the weekends from top 5 teams. LSU beat Louisiana Tech 23-7. Georgia beat Austin Peay 28-6. South Carolina beat South Carolina State 38-10, but didn't score in the first quarter of that game. And Texas A&M failed to cover against Utah State. There were a lot of ugly games in college football over the weekend, and I don't know what that was about. I think it was probably the weather. I think the weather had the biggest part of that. Penn State barely beating Florida International, but only leading 10-0 at halftime. Was it weather? Was it something else? Clemson only beating Troy 27-16, actually trailing Troy 16-3 at halftime. Yes, Clemson trailed Troy 16-3 at halftime, believe it or not. As a matter of fact, Troy jumped out to a 16-0 lead on Clemson, and Clemson had to come back, scored the final 27 points, including 24 in the second half. But that was, again, my theory, my takeaway. I think weather, particularly in the South, was affecting things in a lot of ways and caused a lot of problems. But still, that was really shocking that there were so many other games. And my final takeaway, other teams who won against easy opponents that didn't have ugly games, don't write off Texas and Alabama just yet. Texas 38-7 beat San Jose State. I don't understand why everybody's writing off Texas and Arch Manning. It was his first start as the full-time starting quarterback for Texas. It was at Ohio State, the defending national champs, and Texas only lost by a touchdown, and he had them in position to potentially win the game at the end of the year. Don't freak out about that. And also, again, very big on this, Alabama, they just beat Louisiana Monroe 73-0. That Florida State game, look, Florida State just looks like it's back. Okay, because I know it was against a bad opponent, but over the weekend, Florida State against East Texas A&M, 77-3. So Florida State was just a tough road game for Alabama. They're a much better team than people thought. I actually think Alabama could still end up being fine. We'll see what happens. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. cityheatandair.com. cityheatandair.com. When we come back, I'm going to give you my Heisman race and my top 10. A quick message first from City Heating and Air.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
All right, a Heisman race. Let's get rolling with it. This is going to be a hot take. My Heisman race right now is who's got the best stats in actual meaningful games. And number one across the board is Dante Moore. Dante Moore, with what he just did to Oklahoma State, I don't see how you cannot have Dante Moore leading your Heisman race after that. 16-21, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think Dante Moore is the star of the year so far. And doing what they did to Oklahoma State, he leads my Heisman race. Diego Pavia is now in there. That's right. Diego Pavia is in there because he lit it up against Virginia Tech. You got to give him some credit. Now, again, I'm going week to week right now, guys, because there's not a sample size of enough stats to actually go with who should be leading. So this is going to change radically each week, and there will be different players every week in this Heisman race. But Diego Pavia right now, I got him at number 2. For those who don't know, he balled out against Virginia Tech over the weekend. That really stood out. Luke Altmaier for Illinois, again, balling out at Duke, a big win for Illinois, dropping 45 points at a Power 5 school. That's huge. John Napier at Oklahoma. He actually played really well despite only 24 points. I got to put him in there. Him and that Washington State offense that they brought in, or that offense that he and his offensive coordinator brought in from Washington State is looking to work on the Brent Venables. And then number 5, Bo Pribula for Missouri. He's actually balling out pretty well too. So Dante Moore, Diego Pavia, Luke Altmaier, John Napier, Bo Pribula are my top 5 Heisman leaders. That's going to change on a week-to-week basis until things really settle down. Now my top 10. I'm going to say something first up front. You guys have to understand this with my top 10. I throw out any projections, anything I think about teams or anything like that when I do my top 10. Here's how I do my top 10. I separate them by tiers. Did you beat a team that made the college football playoff? Did you beat a Power 4 team? Did you beat them on the road or at home? And what are the records of those teams as of right now? That's it. That's it. That's all I'm doing right now, meaning there's teams that you would have in the top 10 that don't belong there right now. So, number 1 is South Florida. South Florida has to be number 1. They beat a team that made the playoff last year, and then they beat a group of a Power 5 team on the road. There's no way you cannot have South Florida number 1 in your rankings if you are going by body of work right now. That doesn't mean I think they're the best team, but I do think their body of work generates them being the number 1 team in the nation. Yes, they deserve to be number 1. Number 2 is Iowa State. And as a matter of fact, you could put Iowa State at number 1. They have 2 wins over Power 5 schools already this year. They beat Kansas State in Ireland away from home. And then this past weekend, they beat Iowa 16-13. The only reason they're not number 1 is Kansas State now is 1-2 after losing to Army. And they beat Iowa. They beat them on a neutral field, and Iowa at home. They haven't won a game on the road just yet the way South Florida has. But you can make a case. Iowa State's number 2. South Florida's number 1. Number 3 is Auburn. Auburn deserves to be number 3. Auburn, they have a signature road win over Baylor, who just beat a Power 5 school that made the college football playoff this past year over the weekend. So that's a more quality win, and Auburn beat them on the road. Auburn has to be number 3 right now. There's no debates on that. LSU is number 4. They have a road win over a Power 5 school. That's 1-1. Ole Miss is number 5. Road win over a Power 5 school. Georgia Tech is number 6. Road win over a Power 5 school. Nebraska is number 7. Road win over a Power 5 school. Illinois is number 8. Road win over a Power 5 school. Beat Duke this past weekend, 45-19. TCU is number 9. The only reason TCU is down to number 9 is where they have a road win over a Power 5 school. They didn't play this past weekend, so they're only 1-0 instead of 2-0 like the other ones. That by default puts them at number 9. But road win over Power 5 school. TCU is number 9. Tennessee is number 10. Some schools I left off that are notable. Ohio State. They beat a Power 5 school. It was a home win. Can't put them in the top 10 yet. Florida State beat a Power 5 school. It was a home win. Don't have another top quality one on the schedule. Can't put them in the top 10 yet. Miami, Power 5 school. Power 4 school, home win. Can't put them in the top 10 yet. And then other schools that could have had a case: Tulane, NC State, Vanderbilt, Michigan State, Stanford, Oregon, Mississippi State, Missouri, and Oklahoma. But again, you have to beat a Power 4 school away from home. Tennessee beat a Power 4 school away from home. It was a neutral site, but a win over a Power 4 school away from home was enough for me to put Tennessee on this list. Now, you might ask about South Carolina, who did beat Virginia Tech at the start of the year. Why they wouldn't be on this list if my standard holds. It was a Power 4 win away from home. That has to count for something, right? Even if it wasn't specifically on the road. Here's why I'm not doing that. Virginia Tech, and I'm saying this with Vanderbilt, even though Vanderbilt won at Virginia Tech, they're 0-2. So now we at least have a sample size of the season to say this isn't actually a good football team. They're 0-2. And with that in mind, that's why I consider Virginia Tech a lower tier win than other Power 4 wins to this point. Again, this will all change as time goes on, guys. Schedule strength will start to filter out, but I'm not doing anything on that at this point. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and you, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Hit that like and subscribe button. Ring the bell, turn on your notifications. We're back on tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. We're going to start looking ahead to Georgia. It's football season, and now things really start to gear up. So again, you guys have a great rest of your day with Caleb Calhoun. Thanks for tuning in. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.